Hello, and thank you for joining us today on another live edition of Transcending Ascension. Today, I'm joined with Shamanic Channeller Rachel Chamness. How are you doing today, Rachel?
Good. I'm doing great. It's nice to be here. Thank you, Diana.
Oh, not a problem. So, why don't we start this out by you letting us know, letting my audience know? You say you channel shamanically, you're a mentor. So, how does that work for you? What is your business, and how does that work with channeling?
Sure. It's Sound Waves Heal is what I call my business. And that's because I work a lot with sound. I used to be an opera singer, and so I sort of came into the whole spiritual realm of wanting to use my voice. And once I started doing that, then I started to get into everything else, and then it all just came together. So I sort of blend a lot of things. I work with trance channeling, trance shamanic work. So what that is, like a trance journeying is what I would call shamanic work. I sort of use the term in the same way you might use multi-dimensional or higher dimensional work, working in between or higher dimensions than 3D. So meaning that when I go in to heal someone, I'm really using my clairs and my mediumship to see what needs to be cleared in many realms, if that makes sense. So just kind of going deeper than just the 3D chakras. I like to clear higher chakras and really go in and see past lives, concurrent lives, things that are affecting the body, and clear that as well. But I also use a lot of mediumship. So I do a lot of trance channeling of beings of light. Uh, I do a lot of sound healing. I do some Reiki. I'm a Reiki master. I sort of use Reiki as a base for sending distance or just for protection. And I also teach a psychic Reiki healing course. I teach a lot of courses. That's where the mentoring comes in. So I teach a lot of trance channeling, light language, Reiki, and classes that combine all those things. And I combine them all to do what I call liquid Reiki shamanic healing. So that's the combination of like mediumship, trancing, trance journeying, light language, Reiki. This is like all together.
Yes, I love that. I love that. I like what you said there about the layers, and then the very things you do is perfect for fitting into the layers because we are indeed layered. That's the main thing I teach my audience is dimensions and layers, and why you'll have to heal the same lesson twice because I heal people more in a Jungian way, really, like just bringing them through that shadow. But like people don't understand. They'll be like, "Oh, I got over this last year. Why is it back?" Because there's layers. You healed it on that base understanding layer now, but your consciousness has grown, it's spread out, and now you're touching upon the infection at another layer because just like an infection in the body as within so without, our energetic infections have layers, and they really, I mean, it depends on the actual trauma, but they can extend basically into infinity technically until at that point where darkness just stops existing and we're all light, right?
Yes, I do. I teach layers too. I teach all about that in my psychic Reiki healing master teacher about the layers, and I see it the same way. It's like you clear a layer, but sometimes there's a deeper reason, or from a past life, or there's something deeper about that. Like everything we come here to clear and understand and heal about ourselves. There's a reason for it, and sometimes that reason can get really deep. And when you come
Yes.
back to it, it's sometimes a little bit different. Like it has a different tint to it. Like it's, before you cleared the actual, uh, pain of it or shame of it, but this time you're clearing how it affected the way that you see other people, or kind of used that filter of that pain to I don't know, see other people, or maybe even block them out, like, oh, I build this wall. It could be something like that. It's always like a little bit different when you come back to it.
100%, because it's all perceptions, right? Like we're living within our perceptions. And when we get and heal certain layers and move, even when we change our life in certain degrees, it throws off our entire perceptions. And our perceptions are what cause us to see certain people in certain ways or see ourselves in other ways. Where when those shift, it all shifts. And that's the layers really shifting. Like we're a constant moving sphere of multiple layers. So we can come and go from things and then come and go from other things and they pair together. It's just, it's never ending. It's quite the journey.
It is. Well, we really agree on that. I love that. I love that you're doing that. I'm so excited.
Yes, and I love the way you're doing it. It's so much more magical almost than mine, because mine is very rooted and almost like very paired. It's magical. But the hermetic magics are more of, you know, the hermetics, right? Like the laws of the universe, dealing with the law of rhythm, dealing with the all is mind, dealing it with it from that regard. It's funny because it's the most ancient truths we have, but it lacks a certain fun flair. Where I love that you said you came from opera, because that's a synchronicity too, because I just started going down the road of learning myself. I used to love to sing, not that I'm even good at it, but who doesn't love to sing, right? And I've always found it healing, so I'm actually looking into taking actual shamanic singing lessons so I can like, and I always like shame my, oh well, I just want that. No, it's not even about other people. Like singing for the self, like just singing in your own room, in your own shower, in your own wherever, or just, well, I sing when I clean. It just helps like transmute the energy
It
while you're
does.
doing it, right? Like you feel
That's
it.
actually why I call my business Sound Waves Heal, because these sound waves, they're just energy waves, you know? And even that's how I teach trance channeling. It's like you have a wave and the being of light has a wave. And how are we going to bring those together so you can do a really deep channel? You know, the sound waves is a really good way to think about energy and how it works in all ways, I think.
Yeah,
And
harmonic resonance. I heard there what you're saying. You're linking the harmonic resonance, and that
yes,
puts you on the same stream as a being. Yes.
yes, and that's why you see, you know, when you see a trance channeler who's, you know, literally what that means is instead of repeating the message, they're speaking through you, and you'll see that a person may sound like the being for a while, and then they'll sound like themselves, sound like the being, sound like themselves. It's because it's a wave, so it's like it goes deep, and then it might come up a little bit, like go deep again and come up, and so you can kind of hear it in the cadence of the voice, which is interesting.
I love that because that's exactly what I noticed. I was channeling without realizing I was channeling, because the way before I even ever started doing interviews, I just would turn the camera on and shoot and tell the people, because I'd have epiphanies and I'd bring it to the people. And then I'd rewatch my episodes and be like, why do I have an accent all of a sudden? And then I would remember that moment, and like it would be like I was being elevated and taken above myself. I've never 100% given over control, but there'd be like this whoomp of extra self involved, and the like the frequency of that will shift and change on the message. Sometimes it's just, if I egoically go the wrong way and like talk out of known behavior rather than out of the wave, all of a sudden and I'll lose it, and then you just got to pick it back up. So it's funny, I've been on that wave. It's quite the journey. It's why I love doing this.
That's so cool. I love it. Yeah, when I first learned to trance channel, I suddenly realized, hey, I think I've been doing this a long time. Oh, and it's 11:11 here.
That's
Confirmation.
amazing.
And
Yes.
I love what you said about singing, because I love to attune people to light language. And light language is, I mean, it's many things, but one of the things that you can use it is for singing. And it's really just bringing through light codes or numerics, or, you know, all kinds of um, multidimensional healing from planes that are higher than ours and helpers that are higher than us, and bringing them into the body with singing or speaking or hands or body movement or art or even drums or even like an instrument, like just bringing those codes through. I love it so much. And so I do that all the time. I'm like singing light language all the time. It's like, you're so right. It's a great way to just change it up.
Yes. Yes, I like that you say you find it in different places, because I love my I forget what they're called, the steel drums, like, but the new ones, like the ones
Yes.
that with the almost like they're buttons, but it's all steel. I can just go on that. And I try to get into piano because scale really blocks me because it's hard to stay in the flow if you don't have the skill. I've tried guitar, I've tried piano, and I always maxed out at a certain point where it would just take a certain amount of brain power and time that I just really don't have. And so that's why I love my
Right.
steel drum, because you can go at it and be a beautiful master very easily. And like, so, and the
Oh,
flow can take over, and you just, next thing you know, you're like, where is this coming from? It's like, it's
yeah.
magic.
That's light language for sure. Uh,
Yes.
I try to do that with the piano. Sometimes I have taken piano, but I've been a beginner for like my entire life. Not very good at it.
I
But
like
if I try to
scratch
just
the
let it
surface.
flow, then it's like, oh, look, I'm playing something. I don't even know how I'm doing this.
Yes. I love that. I love that. Yes, just how we can get into things. And I envy, and I know we're not supposed to envy, but and it's not in a terrible jealous way, but it's just in a little longing way, where like if I could magic as power into myself, it would be musical frequency, musical skills, because the whole universe is magic, or not, well, magic, yes, but music. It's
It is.
music. It's a song playing out. The archetypes are different notes in the song, and it's just we're the on other notes, and it's just like to be able to be in that space, that genius level space in music would be such a gift, put it that way. They must be like high level souls. Well, you yourself were in opera, so like you would know what that's like. How are the other people in the opera world? Do you sense a higher beingness in them, or are they just standard people?
I mean, it's been a very long time, like 7 or 8 years since I've done it. But I mean, regular people, but I think that that's kind of what opera pulls you in. It's like it is. So one thing I love about music is the beautiful notes, right? Let's think about an orchestra playing. It's like amazing to go sit and listen to an orchestra and people singing. When we sing different notes, it activates different chakras, and people really love a high C, right? That's the biggest thing, especially like when tenors sing a high C or sopranos. I used to sing lots of high Cs, and that is because it will activate the soul star chakra, which is the seat of the soul. So that will really like activate the audience. And I always felt like when I was singing opera, I really wanted to be healing people, but I didn't think that, I thought I was supposed to be an opera singer. So I would just be having fun and singing the notes that cleared their chakras, cleared their soul star, or connected to their soul star. And I would just be having fun, and it was really cool like that. So I would say there's all kinds of people in opera, but we're so uh, just addicted to this beautiful healing from the orchestra. And the one thing that I love is the silence. So you have this beautiful note and it rings out, whether it's violin or singer or whatever, and it's ringing out. And then there's like that moment of silence. It almost feels like that moment between breaths where you're kind of almost in a higher dimension itself, And this is before I even knew about any
Yes,
of that.
I've
Yeah.
always I know the feeling you're talking. It's when a lot like gets stirred. You're making a lot of magic essentially. You've made like probably a toroidal field of magic, and then and you get to have it like come down on you, rain down on you, and just go into your being. It's when you integrate it, assimilate it, and actually get to accept it rather than just experience it. Because we
Yeah.
can be in these frequencies and experience it, and that's amazing, and deep breathing, but anchoring it into that self. Like that's why I teach with, like, in your meditation, when you're feeling a high uplifting, or even if you're having a really excited moment and something's happening, make sure to bring it in and like create that still moment, because if you don't, that wave was beautiful, but it will move on, and it'll carry on, and you'll be a little uplifted because of what it did in that moment. But if you're able to anchor it in, you might have just upgraded yourself, like, and taken years of work off like that.
That's such a cool idea, because I was just about to say, when you're singing on the stage and there's that moment of silence, it's almost like you can feel the audience holding their breath. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And then sometimes I feel like but I would say after you've taken in the deep breath, you've taken the deep breath and then you just hold, it's like there's that, it's also like that same sort of feeling of that silence between each moment, like a whole nother world. I love that that's probably exactly what it is. You're just anchoring it in. I've never thought of it like that. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's just like it's just what I feel. I do a lot. It's funny. I do a lot of my knowing out of like I see it inside, like I see it. Like it's hard to explain to people. And I used to have toys with the kids, and I make examples for people to try to get them to see it because I can see the energy and I can see what it's doing. I can see what it wants to do, and it's really hard to find the language to tell
I
people.
know.
That's another win for music.
Right? It is. Sometimes I have a really hard time explaining. And sometimes, like if you've experienced trance channeling too, it's like you're they're these beings, they're speaking through you and they're trying to tell you something, and you can, and sometimes it's just not translatable, like what they're trying to say. And they instead show me things while they're trying to find words to say it so people can understand. And then I have to sometimes like stop and be like, okay, this being's showing me this and this and this. And, because it's like, it's not explainable.
It's true, and I've even had it to the point because I don't know if it's because I'm so thirsty with knowledge or what, and it's maybe why, but anyways, when I get in a higher trance state just to discussing things above, there's this block, and we can be having like going back and forth, and things will be going very well. And then I'll like ask something above what I know right now, because I find when you're doing it, they're almost just helping you clarify what you already know. And like so they'll have to use your own words, your own language that you already have in your head, and then you can
That's
hit a
right.
wall where it's like you don't have the language for this yet. Like I
Yes.
can tell you, but you don't. It's there's no, it's not in there for me to use those language to show you. So
Yeah.
it's
So sometimes
interesting.
when you're trance channeling, they're like, you can feel them hunting around your brain, like, where's this? And then they're just
Yes.
showing me things, and I'm like, I don't have a word for that. I'm
It's
sorry.
true. And it's almost like they're saying the same thing. Like we say that to the people we teach, and they say that to us. Like, I don't have a way to explain this to you right now. Like, I
Yeah.
can't explain this to you right now. It's not that I'm not that they like, I even, because I can argue with them literally, like, come on, just tell me. Because, like, there's information where you can proceed with where it's like, you shouldn't know this. It's not for your own good. It might cause you to go like a little nutty. And I'm like, no, do it anyways. Like, and like I can open more layers that way, but there does hit an ultimate wall where like we're not getting through it all.
I know. Sometimes it's like you ask the question, and it's just like,
Yes.
sorry, no. There's like nothing there. Like,
Like there's a
that is
literal
not for
room.
you.
Like they and it's also like they can be
The
gone until you
ceiling.
move to a different avenue. And like they'll come back when you start going down the allowed discussions.
Right. It's like, boop.
Yes. That's funny. I actually, this is a good moment, and I don't want to lose this thought. You said that you teach your audience layers. So please allow my audience to hear your version of hearing layers. Because one thing I do with the human design partner I have is we discuss it in the two different languages we have, because she's an expert and I'm not, but I'm very versed in it. So we'll say, this is my way of saying it, this is her way. So what is your way of explaining layers so they can see it deeper?
Well, there's two things. One would be the layers, the way that you were talking about it, where it's the same thing come back. It feels like it comes back, but it's not. It's different. It's just it's frustrating when you're like, I worked on that for 10 years and it's told like that should not be here. That happened to me recently, and I was like, what is this? Okay, don't go there. It's just another layer. Gotta clear it. But there's also layers of healing where we're just layers and layers and layers. And so for light workers, where we're always working on ourselves, we're going to a deeper layer and a deeper layer and a deeper layer. So you can come to this layer where there's all kinds of things that need to be cleared, even entities or something from a past life. They're not, when you have an entity, it's not always like you've had it. Oh my gosh, here's an entity. I had a session 2 weeks ago. What is this? This shouldn't be here. That's probably because you cleared all of these layers, and this is something from a past life that you now need to clear. It might not be the kind that takes you over, especially if you're an advanced light worker, but something that needs to be cleared out. Oh, what's the reason this is here? Well, in a past life, you worked with this dark magic, and somewhere in your psyche, you feel shame about that because you say, oh, I worked with a dark. How can I be trusted to work with a light now? Because in this past life, I did these horrible things. Well, we all did that. That's how we learned how to live in the light. So that's okay. And you just say, okay, I just released that. I learned that was a, that was a different life. Now I work with the light that teaches me. I have chills. And so that layer is cleared. And maybe you've cleared all this stuff about, let's say love is a great example, like of walls in the heart, like what I was kind of came up earlier, like having these walls where, and then you clear all that, you begin to let love in. And then what comes up is this layer of like, but what about loving the self? Like where, now that I've healed that, it's really time to heal loving the self. And so all of this stuff might come up from that, and that's kind of what it's like. People think, oh, I'll be a light worker and then all my problems will be solved. But no, now you're just going to work on layer and layer and layer. It's just endless, but that's what we're here for. So it's okay.
That was perfect too. And I like what you said there because it's never ending. It's true. But don't lose heart because you said there specifically, like, there's a difference between being lower vibe, let's just call it, and actually letting entities control your life. Like I did in my early 20s. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
me too.
I
Oh,
gave in to society basically and was trying to walk the taught path and ugh. And
me
then by
too.
the end of it, when I finally started spiritually awakening around 25, I was realized like I didn't know who I was. There was no me. It was just layers and layers and layers of controlled entities.
Yeah,
And then you walk it for 10, 15 years. And you're right, you dig up more layers. I see this with everybody I even work with. Like they have the same similar stories, and I see it from lower to higher ends too. And I can like controlled studied agree that when people, so not just myself, but other people, I can prove like you just don't get taken over anymore. You feel them and you go,
right.
hey, like, I don't talk like that. What are you doing?
Exactly.
And then you're like, you maybe have a minute or two of being like, oh no, and like feeling bad for yourself. But then you get like, oh no, get out of
That's not
here. And
me.
then, yeah, you do what you got to do to work through it. Some people call it blocks. Like this is usually what people's blocks are is you've come to a wall of some kind of entity or negative. Some people call implants, programming,
Right? Stories.
stuff, yeah, mind stories, subconscious, just situations, knots, I can call it. Like there's just you can feel it. And then when you release it, you can release an entity with it and then you work through that. But that's actually not as hard as it used to be. It's gonna go much easier and just be gone.
Exactly. That's the part I didn't say. Yeah, you're right. So it's like you think, oh, is it always going to be this hard? No, because then you're like, you're able to stay in 0 point or fifth dimensional viewpoint, however you want to say it. It's like suddenly you're like, hey, that doesn't sound like me. There's something here. Or, ooh, I don't feel joyful and happy. And I usually do. So there's something here. Now, why? Well, yesterday this happened. It reminded me of this. Maybe there's this coming back up. I need to work on this shadow work, or, what, or there's something in this field, the entities do get attracted to these emotions. It's always emotions. If you release the emotion, then you can release whatever's stuck to it. That's like what, lower vibrational things stick to. It's like this emotion that you're feeling. And we are human and we're going to feel emotions and that's okay, and sometimes we'll go to an old programming of like, oh, I'm not going to think about that now. And then it just hangs out. You think, oh, I'm not going to think about that now. Then it's like, no, you've just painted yourself with that emotion. Better to be like, I'm having this emotion and I accept that I'm having this emotion. Okay. And I'll be sure to work with that later. But even that acceptance will release it. It's a good
Yes.
shadow work.
That is huge key that I'm always, yeah, acceptance and allowing. Like I feel that word allowing, it is acceptance, but that allowing just opens, you need to allow it. Like how, because we're very, I find society makes this very OCD, even if you're chill, which I'm chill, there's still a certain amount of control factors that happen so hard in our emotions. Like if we're sad, but we're busy, like you remember the tragedies but I'm grocery shopping with the children. This will have to wait, like
Yeah.
you need to learn to allow it to happen. But meanwhile, you're still taking care of your children or you're still at work. You're still on the phone with a client. But it's come up over here. That could have come from somebody else, but your mind story is telling you it's this tragedy. It doesn't matter the very endless intricacies of the what that emotion is. Is it yours? Is it something else's? It doesn't even matter. Allow it from a space of non-attachment so you don't make sure you don't
Right.
because you can feel somebody else's emotions and not let it be a part, because the empath community was all
Right.
shield and block and don't let anything in. Turned out that was bad news too. So even when you got into spirituality, there's like this whole, yeah, that's better than nothing. But actually, if you learn to process those emotions efficiently, you're good to go. And then you
And it
can,
doesn't
you
take long. It only
exactly.
takes a minute to be like,
Yes.
okay, I'm feeling sad. That's okay. I accept that I'm feeling sad. And then you just sit with it for a second and then it will release. And then you don't have to be like sad forever because you're not going to feel that emotion right now. Like it only takes a second. Yeah, I have a lot of shadow work techniques. I have a blog post about it that are like that, where you can just take that second. It's come up for a reason. Don't put it off. Just take a second and sit with it. And yeah, you could still be grocery shopping with the kids. And it can even be a
Yes.
lesson. Hey, mommy, you feel sad. Oh, I'm just feeling a little sad for a moment, but I think if I just sit with it, it's going to go away. We can teach our kids these things too.
It's true. It's true. Yes, I'm all about conscious parenting. And even that was a journey between, oops, I spoiled them, and having to become more of a disciplinarian but from an enlightened space of like, and that took studying and researching because I didn't come from that household. I came from a
Same.
domineering, tyrannical household where you did what you told, you were seen and not
Oh,
heard,
that's whole
right?
generation of that. Yeah.
That was the way. My dad would even be like, it might be the 90s out there, but it's the 50s in here. Or this isn't a democracy, this is a dictatorship. Like we were told it was from
Yeah.
so then like to come and then be all like, oh yes, do what you want, children. I thought children would be love and light on their own. Because that's actually what you hear in the spiritual community, but it's actually not true. It's not,
No.
it is, they're lovely beings. You always want to love them and show them love, but they can get very confused. They can become very selfish. They can become very angry and just have tons of emotions that they don't know how to deal with. So we need to learn to like allow it, let it be, teach them how to work with it, but then also set boundaries of, but now you can't smash things, or like all the things that like you don't realize a human needs to be taught.
Yeah, and it for all of us that, almost none of us were raised in this conscious parenting world because there were so many programs of, kids be quiet and do what they're told and all that stuff, that we were taught. And even the one that I deal with the most is the gaslighting of, oh, it's just your imagination, you know, when
Yes.
it's way more than that. It's messages from your spirit guides. It's intuition. Imagination. You know, the only thing I think that's more on the realm of what we call imagination is learning to manifest with your mind.
Mhm.
It's a lesson in that, or it's messages from your guides trying to tell you something, or it's a guide like that unicorn's a guide. That's okay.
Yes, exactly. Or it's like all of the above. Like
Mm-hmm.
we are that multifaceted.
It's
There's so
true.
much to teach them. I just go, tell me more. Like I love when my 4-year-old, he's my youngest, he just goes right into the story. My oldest, she always wanted to tell me the things, and even still to this day, she's only 8. I'm like, tell me more, like draw, I'm trying to draw it out of them. I do similar things when I work with people. Like I find that heart spark and I try to pull it out. Oh, tell me more about this, because you'll find that there's a true soul calling in those moments. And like with a child, there's gonna be many soul callings, so you just like pull it out of them, but it takes so much. You don't realize as an adult that we're all narcissists. Like we're all narcissists. And you have children? Yes.
I have a 13-year-old. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so just the one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, did you, you did I don't like did you notice they're narcissists too? Like, and then you don't notice you're a narcissist until you're dealing with these other like complete narcissists of just wanting you to forget you exist. Like I'm, because I have 3 of them, and I had them all clustered together. So like there's such this world of, and I treat it like spiritual boot camp though, of being like, okay, I get it. I'm not a person anymore for most of the day. But it does something to you when you allow that dissolving of the self to just be like, okay, I'm here for you. But then it also does something for yourself when you put up boundaries and go, No, I am a person actually. And then it teaches them that balance. Do you find that when you work with people that like there's this large amount of adults that even if they're good people, like they don't realize how much the world is beyond them.
I think that's one of the biggest lessons for the human is like we're not alone. You know, there's so much around us. I don't know if that's what you meant, but like we have hundreds of spirit guides. You have so much help. I think that's one of the lies of this modern age or this 3D that you're alone, all the time when you're not. You have so many guides and helpers, and there's so many beings to learn about and speak to and accept help from and receive that information and believe it and use that to go forward. It's like we go out and get a business coach or a counselor, and all these things are wonderful, spiritual healer, and they're wonderful. I do it too. But also we have these in our spirit team. Like they'll tell us, go do this, go do that. You just have to learn how to accept that help and understand what it is and how to do that. Like, okay, if you feel that your clairs are not open yet, which everyone has the ability to do, then you can say, give me a sign. I used to do that all the time. That's one thing where I was always spiritual, is I would just be like, it's a sign. Ever since I was little, it's a
Same.
sign. And but I think that's one of the things we feel like we're an island, or it's just, and especially now with the whole world in your pocket, the social media is so addictive, and scrolling or being sucked in and feeling like your friends are on your phone and not in real life. Like people don't even talk on the phone anymore. Or what happened at dinner parties, like people are like, oh, but my house isn't perfect, it's messy, I don't want to have my friends over. Like, how embarrassing, I'll have to clean this whole place. Or like, I never put anything on the walls. Like, it's just because we're looking at social media where people have perfect homes, and we feel like not enough, and or all these little programming things come and keep us very solitude, like in a lot of solitude. And we really need to break out of that, like consciously see that as this is a this is a program, and we have to break out of it. Invite your friends over, even if it's messy. They're your friends and they don't care. Go to the healers meeting, or begin something in your community where you bring metaphysical people together. I do that. We do it in the first Wednesday of every month in Knoxville. And we just hang out. It's totally free. We go to like a sober bar and like drink kombucha and just talk, and it's fun, but something, we have to break out of this, where we've been pigeonholed like this. And as parents, it's really hard too, because time and jobs and children, and it can be really difficult.
It's true. And it's funny you say that with children, the box, because they're being raised in a box. I tried homeschooling. I'm homeschooling the youngest because he's only 4, but and I want them to not get that complete programming. But I eventually
Yeah.
put my daughter in halfway through SK, just because she was falling behind on her reading. But honestly, like it was breaking my heart just to see the longing for friends and that community. And there isn't. I tried homeschooling communities, they weren't interested in doing anything more than once a week for just an hour at the park. Like that's not, kids need more socialization than that. And I could see it, like the pain in their hearts was just eating me alive. Like, because we need that, and we as adults need that too. Like we as adults need that connection. Like,
We do.
yes, the divine wanted to be individuated, so like there's a point that's appreciated. We're going into the age of Aquarius, which is a very, that's why I say we're all going to be narcissists, because the Aquarius is a bit like, it can be a good thing because you're very aware, they're very aware of others, they're very aware of self, so we can heal a lot of stuff. But we're also going to become very self-centered and less of the tribe. It's going to break that tribe.
Yeah, I feel that. It's we're learning to really be like, we might do it together, but we're really doing it for ourselves. We're not being, the tribe does not affect us. It's like,
Yes.
it's not like when, like the way that I grew up, it was like there was only one, or like just kind of higher society. Like there's only a few things that are expected or okay, and everything else is trash or tacky or terrible. And you have to, if you don't do this narrow thing, then you're not accepted. And that was a lot of programming I had to release.
Yes, I'm still doing that myself. Like, especially like you're living a life and you're a mom and you're supposed to look a certain way and talk a certain way, except you're spiritual. And I don't, where are you located? Are you, I'm in
I'm in.
Ontario.
Oh, you
Go
are?
ahead.
Oh, I was going
Where
to
are
ask you.
you?
I'm in the U.S. I'm in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Oh yeah, okay, Knoxville. Okay, so I know Tennessee is very populated. So I'm in Ontario. It's basically an atheistic society. Like that's
Really?
the only thing that's acceptable to be. Even if you're a Christian, you're like, that's cute. They're there. Like they're
Really?
special.
This is the
Hmm.
Bible Belt, is what we call it. So we have a very high like program Christian sort of thing here, a lot. But there's also lots of metaphysical people because this is a place where we were called to come to. I've only lived here 3 years, and there's a whole thing about Knoxville as it being a crystal city, and all of these light workers have been called here. And it turns out, I think it's about that the ground itself is full of quartz and it just holds a high frequency. And anyway, there's a whole vein on that. But I feel that we're all being called here, and so we're starting to like come together, and there's more and more metaphysical people here, which is great because otherwise we feel really outnumbered.
Yeah, exactly. And you need you it's and let's just realize like and it's in my if you know human design, it's in my
Just a
human
little.
design chart to come first, to be first. So like that's so like I might and that's why my plan now is to open my own spiritual center here so that there's something for the people. Like it's do I have to do it myself?
No, I love that because I work with a lot of advanced light workers, and almost everyone's being called to open a center. I am as well. I want to open one as well. So like
Oh, good. Is
everyone's
that
being
like the
called to do
big
that.
calling then? Oh, I love
Yeah.
it.
One of my students just opened one in Kentucky, and yeah, and wants to open a whole retreat center to go with it, but it's a metaphysical shop and healing center. So it's happening, and I really see that the reason we're all called to do that, there won't be too many because that's what people will be looking for
Yes.
as we come to a higher vibration, as we are, we're already halfway into ascension. So obviously now, things are happening. People are looking for this. People are waking up. Like, where can I go to feel really good? Like, I look at some of these retreat centers and I think, hey, let's bring our kid. Like, let's go there and just enjoy the scenery and like, let's go to yoga and like go walking on the trails and just it's not like the kind of normal 3D
Yeah.
thing
Like
that you
let's go
take your
instead
kid
of
to.
going to a bar to get drunk, you go to the retreats to vibe out,
Right.
Like
Or
and
instead
just
of going to like Disney World, you go to like, this gorgeous place where you just sit in nature and with the divine. And be
yes,
present. Just be present with each other. Is more important
exactly.
than like, you know, roller coasters or thrills.
Yes, and in an affordable way, because I think the problem why like a lot of the higher named spiritual people ended up getting called like fraud, and there's all this like this problem in that higher level because it makes it so it's a class system even now. Like everything always ends up a
Right.
class system, and then spirituality, especially like earlier on, ended up being a class system because people made retreats. People there's retreats around here, but you want to go, it's $5,000 for the weekend. Like, whereas it's like you said, it's in nature, it's yoga. Like the center I want
Right.
to open, I want it to be mainly free. Like maybe even like the Christians, I think, did us a favor and they created this model, a beginner's model, and we can build off it. Like I think if we were to borrow, not like literally the churches too, like borrow from them, but then advance it. So like they're going under, whether I mean, it might not look like that there, but it's spreading here. Like the church across the street has fought owner to owner and owner. The patronage is so low. They're so desperate. We went for a while since it's evangelical, and that singing for that vibration was amazing. But they were so much about their own internal drama that we stopped going because it wasn't doing us any favors. But like they're closing down. Do you see my siblings just went to a concert, a not positive vibrated concert that's being held in a huge cathedral church. There's a factory in where my mother-in-law's home is, that is a cathedral church, though, because these churches are being left. But a lot of these churches were put on sacred ground, like you were saying, like energy. A lot of them are put on the ley lines, and not necessarily all of them, but like a lot of them are. So like that's prime real estate for to be taken as spiritual centers where people can just walk in like they used to be able to into church and receive comfort of the divine, where there's always sacred music playing and yoga going and like nature trails and like depending on the property level of the place, but there should always be these places where you can go and just be.
I love that idea. What a beautiful thing. And then, yeah, maybe there's donation box or people who donate to it in the same sort of way. And then you
Fashion as the
have it
Christians
open.
did. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a wonderful idea. I love that.
Yes,
Ooh,
without the pressure of the not the full way they did it. Like we'll build off like if you want to out of the goodness of your heart, or we can still have classes in them where people can pay to take specific classes. But walking in
just
and
walking in and experiencing that.
yeah, and it's always happening. Yoga's always happening. Like sound healing's always happening. So that's always happening. But specific classes on learning how to channel, like there's a spiritual church on the next it's like an hour away, but that's close in Ontario because we're huge. But they have a spiritual church and they teach, they're Christian, but they teach chakras, they teach energy work, and they teach you how to be a mediumship. So it's coming. It's
That's
moving.
interesting. That's usually where I get the most flack, you know. You don't know what you're channeling. Actually, I do. And I teach other people to know what they're channeling.
I know. I'd be so scared there because yeah, they burn. I know. I had that fear in the beginning, and I was like, no one even cares here. Like they're not going to burn the witch here. They'll just think you're weird.
Yeah. Yeah. And it really, you know, when you if you don't vibe with someone, you don't hang out with them, so they just kind of get phased out of your, you know, so it's not that big of a deal. You know, and I thought I was going to come out of the spiritual closet, right? I was a voice teacher. Before that, I was an opera singer, and I used to sing in the Catholic church that I grew up in. I would do the cantering. It was just a job, and I really enjoyed, you know, in the Catholic church, you have a lot of people who just go through the motions. And so I always felt like the music portion really gave them something to go home to, even if they weren't listening, even if they were checked out. And especially with Catholicism, there's a lot of guilt and shame. And so I always had the intention that the music would uplift them and help them no matter what. And so I did that for a long time. And then I was like, if I come out here and say, I am a psychic, I'm a medium, I'm a healer, what's going to happen? Because I'm friends with, you know, people on my page on Facebook. Like, what's going to happen? And nothing happened. Okay. Nothing happened. Zero. I literally have to say to an old friend, well, you know that I'm a medium now, right? I'm sure you've seen that. And they're like, oh, yeah, I saw that. You know, like no one is like, what the hell? Like maybe they're talking about me behind my back. I don't know. I don't care. But
I feel like you'd sense it. You'd probably sense it because you can always just. I always like people don't ever say anything to me, but you can tell the ones that are cool and not.
yeah. And it's just funny because I feel that often comes from this sort of idea. And I have like one person in my family who has this thought about me. It's like, you know, you don't know what you're doing, but I do. I know what I'm doing. I know when I talk to God, but you do not. You know what I mean? It's like, that's what that's about. And it's like, guess what? I am not dumb. I I understand how it works, and I'm not being narcissistic in that. This is what I do all the time. I work with people. I try to help them see what is true and what is not. That's a big part of my teaching is discernment, how to learn discernment. And discernment takes time. And so a lot of my courses with mediumship, both of my courses with mediumship, I should say. I have a long one and a beginner short one. When the short one's 6 months and the long one is a year. You know, it teaches you discernment by working on it all the time with a mentor, and you can really begin to understand the difference because yes, these entities can be tricky. However, there's a difference between feeling good and powerful and feeling good and altruistic. And if you can make that difference, then you can, like you said earlier, you can see when it's not right, you know? Do I feel
Yes.
suddenly powerful like, oh, now they know who I am. Now I'm someone. Now they'll respect me. That's not that's not the same as, "Oh my gosh, I really helped her. Look how she's doing. Wow, whatever I channeled, that helped her. That's amazing. It wasn't me. It was whatever came through me, but wow, I'm so happy about that." That's different. That's a different feeling, you know?
Yes, absolutely. And I love that you said discernment there, because that's exactly what I always say too. Because, and you even mentioned earlier in the conversation that you know what it's like to be tricked by a negative entity and you feel really bad about it. And you do feel like, oh no, and you move on. Because I've gone down many spiritual roads myself. And I don't know, like sometimes you're meant to learn something from them. But as long as you stick with your discernment, you hopefully figure that out before they lead you off the cliff. Because a lot of the time, trickster beings can teach you some truth because they're
That's
laying
why they're there.
breadcrumbs. Yeah.
I
And
mean, why
and
would your spirit guides let you be tricked? Because you have to learn something. Yeah, duh.
exactly. Exactly. No, agreed. And then that's why the discernment comes in. That's perfect, because what you're going to feel is your guide saying, no, it's done. Like, stop. But if you egoically have started to attach to like Klingon or whatever you're going to name your being, like, no, me and Klingon are best friends. Like, Klingon would never betray me because Klingons taught me so many good things. But your guides are going, no, 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 you're done. You're done with Klingon. But you keep work, then you fall off the cliff. And you're like, oh, yeah, you told me not to deal with him anymore, but I still did. And
Yeah.
that's where that discernment is so key. And that's with everything and everyone. Like, I'm a job, anything. If you feel into the yeses and the nos, you'll be way better off.
Yeah. And it's, it's something innate, but it can be learned, but you have to let go of the ego, and the core of that always is self-love. If you love yourself enough, then you don't have to prove anything to anybody. And of course, we're always working on that. Everybody's working on that. I'm still working on that, of course. We're always working on it. So it's not like you see people talking about the stuff like you or me and we figured it all out. We're just always figuring it out. Or we're trying to stay in a space of, oh, this happened. Why did that happen? Not why is it happening to me, but oh, this has a purpose. Okay, this is happening. So what do I do? What do I do to flip it? What do I do to learn the lesson and get past it? What do I do not to get stuck here? I don't want to get stuck here. So let me just get through it as fast as I can, learn my lesson, and keep going, and then I can still function, I can still have joy. I can still be like, okay, this is a problem and we're working on it and we're getting through it.
100%. You just completely described being spiritual with awareness. Because
Yeah.
that awareness is what keeps you trucking, keeps you honest. I've literally said the same thing, like, okay, I know I messed up, or not like literally the same thing, but I messed up, or I know this lesson's coming. Please just let it be as quick and easy as possible. I am fully listening. And if I'm not listening, let me know. Because sometimes you think you're listening, but you're not. Like, there's so many variables we're always dealing with here. But staying discerning, staying aware, and realizing like a lot of that I want to call it early spirituality, because I feel like a lot of us are waking up to that being a trick. And that was that you should enlighten completely. You should have no ego. Your ego should die. You should be completely there shouldn't be an ego. That's that's not true. Our
You're
individual
literally living in your ego if you think uh you're totally ascended or you have no ego, then that is a sure sign that you're stuck in your ego.
Exactly. And you can be in a spiritual place and still have ego blocks. Like, that's the way, because we're gonna rise in vibration, we're gonna rise in awareness, but we're still gonna have an ego. That's never gonna stop, because that's how we're individuated. If we're human, we're gonna have an ego. Like,
Yeah,
we can discuss things when we start to fly and be like, do we still have egos? But like, until we're at that next level, we're gonna
right.
have them. But they're changing with us. I mean, can you validate that within your own experience or even your clients? Like, I can.
Yeah,
It's changed, it's growing, it's learned to get on
right.
part of the team. It's part of the team now.
Yeah, and eventually we will be fully ascended and eventually we will be without ego, but we're not quite there yet.
And I don't know if we ever will be physically, right? Like, that's when in my
It's one of the
learning,
questions that we don't know, I think. Yeah.
right? That understanding of density, which you mentioned earlier about how we used to have past lives and we might have been evil. Well, we also used to be a lot more dense. and we're just going to continue alleviating that denseness. We'll probably become more lightweight. And that's why I mentioned flying, because at some point we'll be kind of physical, but actually flying as we release density.
Yes, and that builds, that's what I call the light body. So as you release the density, then your body becomes more filled with light. And the more light we have, the closer we are to that ascended space. And of course it can come and go too. The same thing with waves, you know, you have a
Yes.
dense part like this time right now, especially in America, and I think it's affecting everyone with, you know, there's a lot of diversity. I mean, a lot of dissension because of the election.
Yeah,
People
tomorrow's a
are
big
at
day for
each
you guys.
other's, yeah, everybody's at each other's throats. You know, it's this way, it's that way. You know, in my opinion, it's all the same thing. And I'm not even going to go there. Like that is not, that's total 3D. Like I cannot. So,
No,
you
I
know,
agree. When people want to talk about it, it's like the entire topic of politics just, ugh. It's just, are you joking? Like, what are you even discussing? And the fact that certain figures have to step up and be certain figures, it's just like, because the all is mind and we manifest our own future based on our own knowledge. We manifested like this joke of a reality TV. I'm pooing on anything that I like, think that him being there might even be a good thing right now, because who else is better? And it's like, really,
that's the
what are
thing.
we
Why should
dealing
we
with
have to
here?
vote on the least evil person?
South Park called it. Remember that? Do you ever see that South Park? They had a douche sandwich or a turd sandwich and a douche or something. They had to vote between. It's like, and they were
Right.
fighting, but that just summed it up right there. Like
Yeah.
we're really just discussing who's the least messed up.
I feel like every election is like that. Not, I'm not pinpointing this one, but it's like it's all like that. Like,
It's
and
true.
even when they seem like they're amazing, then I'm even more suspicious. Is this a false light? Like, how can a person become a leader of a country when the real leaders of Earth are not going to allow anything good in those sections, or the are, you know, the evil
It's true.
overlords?
I think they're losing their grip. So I think
They
people
are.
that start to come out now, we should start maybe trying to be trustful. So I don't know. You can let me know your
I don't
opinion, because
know.
I won't be offended. But one person I did think sounded true, because I knew him before from the health world, but that's RFK. I thought
I always
RFK,
wonder about RFK. I really like him, and
I've
then
been
I
told
wonder.
by friends that no, he's nothing. And they're American. I'm not. I'm Canadian. So like, okay, I'll, but no, my
I
friend
really
tells me,
suspect he's false light. He's a little
is
too
he?
good to be
That's what they
true.
keep
But I
saying.
could be
But
jaded. I'm not
yeah,
sure. This is where
that's what I
I'm not
think.
sure I can trust
I
myself
mean, because
and
I
my
even,
ego from staying out of the question, you know?
right, and the fact that he even stepped back to still just, all I care about is health. All I care about is health, because we know those certain things. Like I have, and I'm not saying oh because my problem, because I was anti needles and anti, like I was pro healthcare, all that before even having children. And my son ended up
Same.
severely autistic, and I tried everything. He still ended up severely autistic because of the food. Like, because
Well,
I was,
also we carry a lot of mercury in our bodies. That's my
exactly.
child is sensory processing and has never had any kind of, and I think it's more about all the mercury in my system. I had a lot of cavities, you
Shoot, I
know.
didn't think about that. I used to have mercury fillings. I got them replaced
I
because
got them
I
replaced
learned
too,
later.
but is it truly out of me? You know, I have a tattoo
It's, I
that's
have a
more mercury.
tattoo. Yeah, couple. Yes, exact. Oh, I didn't even think about the mercury in my body, because I've been questioning, because I ate gluten when I was pregnant with him, even though I knew I was allergic
Also
to gluten.
gluten.
Yeah, gluten
Yes,
does
if you
it, and
eat
I ate it,
gluten
and
when
I am
you
allergic.
are, yeah, when you're
But I
gluten
let the
intolerant.
hormones get the best of me.
No, that actually
uh,
causes autism. That's true.
yeah,
If you are gluten intolerant and you eat gluten when you're pregnant, then it will take too much B vitamin,
yeah.
P5P or whatever out, and that can cause autism too.
Yep, I tell
But I
my
mean, we didn't
friends this,
know
and
that.
they're like, "Oh, stop blaming yourself." I'm like, "No, no, no, I'm not wallowing here. I just factually know I did this." Like,
Well, we didn't know, you
I
know.
yeah, I knew I was but I was still not enough there yet to be so firm. Like, 'cause you make mistakes, and that's a big one. But I think it's God wanted me to have that fire, to be like, this is a real issue, and to see and live in that process. Like, he did this autism class before school. There was 10 of them, and they were all boys. They're all the same age. They're all 10 of them I live in a tiny country town. That's scary. His school today, when I dropped him off, there was one of them just screaming and crying, and I just had, oh God, I like want to just stay and help. And they were just, oh, it was the actual principal dealing with it. Like they were just fried. And there's, imagine now when they're all adults and they hit the scene, like, oh my
Well, I
God.
think wherever there's dark, there's light, right? We're being
Yes.
bombarded with chemtrails and all kinds of, there's metal everywhere. Like, even if we eat totally organic, even if we filter the hell out of our water, even if we do all the right things and we're obsessive about it, which we can be, and I have to watch myself, don't get obsessive, you know? Um, we can still have all the things. We still have parasites, we still have all the things that are wrong with us. And even in all that dark, all the programming, there's still light, which is that these kids that are autistic or on the spectrum, and adults who are figuring out that they're autistic, which is most of us psychic people,
Yeah. I didn't learn anything.
that,
I'm like, whoa.
yeah, oh yeah, definitely. That, it's a different mind and it's a different way. We are, I think, more acclimated to ascension. I think I have chills everywhere. These autistic children and all the children on the spectrum, they are going to show us the way. They've come here to teach us how, to teach us our spirituality, which I'm sure sounded like it happened to you, it happened to me, and they're going to lead us. And so it's never a bad thing. The light is everywhere. But it is hard as a mom. You think, oh, well, this kid has it hard because of me. Or, I totally get that because, yeah, it was all my Mercury. I tried so hard to get it all out before I got pregnant. But, the body releasing things it's not a quick process.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And that's a good mindful place to leave this. I want to honor your time. Thank you so much for having this conversation. And I'm with you on the
Thank you.
parasites too. I could not have agreed more with you pretty much on everything we discussed.
I know. I love you. I'm so glad we met.
Yes, me too. This is very, and just yesterday, my episode, I put out a lot of the things you said today. So this was so many synchronicities. I love
Oh,
it.
it's great.
So hopefully we can do this again
I'd
sometime.
love to. Yeah.
And let's leave the audience with let them know where they can find you and how they can work with you.
Sure. I'm Rachel Chamness. I'm at soundwavesheal.com. And I have many ways that you can work with me from, you can just do all the free things. I have a big blog. I have a podcast called 5D Chamness. 5D Channels and Chats with Rachel Chamness. And I also have a membership. I do sessions one-on-one. And I also teach a lot of classes. If you ever just want to learn, then just reach out to me.
Fantastic. And thank you so much for being here. Her links are
Thank
in
you.
my description and her description, I think, in the boxes below. And thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Have a great day. Divine blessings to everyone.